Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. I've had a lot of requests about how I do my own micarta and what is micarta and how is it made and the process and whatnot and what you need to do it. I'm still very new to this. I've only done it a handful of times now. However, the process is relatively simple. All micarta is basically some sort of resin or epoxy combined with a cloth. This is an example of a micarta handle on this knife. You can see here that there is almost like a weave, like a cloth material. And that's really all that micarta is just epoxy or some sort of resin combined with be it cloth, fiberglass, sometimes paper's used, but mostly for knife making, usually like canvas, denim, cloth, any sort of fabric is used for micarta for knife handles. Very, very strong stuff. I would say harder than most woods. You'll need a couple of things. Obviously you'll need some sort of epoxy or resin. I'm going to be using Wet Systems epoxy resin part 1 and 2 with the 205 fast hardener. The reason I like this system is because it comes in a pump ready to go. It is 1 squirt per 1 squirt, which is super convenient. It's easy, already measured, and you can store it exactly like this. I'm not advocating specifically for them. It's not sponsored or anything like that. However, I have to say that this has been the most convenient system when it comes to mixing you will ever come across. So 1 full squirt of this and 1 full squirt of this is the perfect mixture ratio. So you'll need some sort of epoxy and or resin. Obviously a mixing cup, a mixing spatula. I'd recommend gloves. This stuff is nasty. It will hurt you when it dries and cures on your skin. So gloves are a must. Now when making micarta, you also need to find a way to compress the two materials together. This is to ensure that every piece of fiber in that particular piece of micarta is gonna get compressed nice and tight along with the resin getting in every nook and cranny in between the fibers, makes it extra strong. I just take 2 pieces of wood, throw clamps all the way around 4 corners, let it sit overnight. There's a million different ways you can do this. This is like the ghettoest and cheapest way possible. And obviously, besides the epoxy, you're going to need your cloth for the material. I find cheap t-shirts are the quickest way. There's also samples of material you can buy online that's pretty cheap too. Goodwill has tons of t-shirts for super cheap. Denim also works really good, so if you want to use an old pair of jeans or if you have a bunch of old clothes you don't wear, makes great material for micarta. Both of these t-shirts 100% cotton, and I got them for $5 for $1. Can't beat that. Now there's a couple of different methods that you can do. The 2 I see most is either linear pattern where you lay all the colors on top of each other. That's what I did for this knife right here, which is a mixture of orange and gray, like a dark grayish silver. And you can see the layers in between the two. Another method you can do is the bag method, is where you just cut up a bunch of strips and you layer it in the bag, and it creates more of a random pattern, which is what I did for this knife. Basically just cut it up into strips and kind of all let it sit wherever it lands, and hopefully you'll compress the gaps out of it and it ends up looking really cool. And I'm gonna be doing both of those methods today because I wanna use them for different things. And if you wanna save yourself some trouble when it comes to cleaning up and getting the material shaped, I suggest go ahead and investing in some parchment paper, some wax paper for cooking. You can apply it to both sides and that way it doesn't mess with you. So I've got some t-shirts here that I'm gonna go ahead and start cutting up to make my micarta. So seeing this is how I layered this, this will appear red, white, and blue depending on how you cut and design the handles and whatnot. So we'll layer it like that on some filament paper. This is a particular pattern or idea that I've had in mind specifically for this knife that I've been working on, which I'm calling the Rhino. I kind of want to emulate an ivory, similar to like an elephant tusk for this particular blade, and just using a little bit of gray with mostly white on top of adding some pigment powder, a little bit of gold, mix that in with the resin. This will look really cool. And this will have a really cool red and black effect. Between these 2 bags, we're going to be using a lot of epoxy. Like, we'll probably run out, to be honest. We'll start out with 5 full squirts. Make sure it's primed. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, let's go ahead and go to 6. 6. Then we just do the same with this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You want to be quick to mix this stuff because you only have so much time. You want to make sure you get it all nice and mixed up. One thing I really enjoy about this epoxy too is that it dries absolutely clear. Boat repair epoxy or like fiberglass resin, it tends to dry with almost like a yellowish tint. It'll actually kind of come out looking like this. But during the curing process on this, for whatever reason, that yellowish tint from the hardener goes away and you're left with a very nice clear product. Basically just pour it in this bag and then start stirring it. I'm not going to pour all of it right away. But this is cotton, and it really absorbs that epoxy very well. So even that, still gonna need a good bit more than that too. That's still nowhere near even close, so we'll do another 6 pumps. You can tell the bag's already warming up a little bit. It's the hardener reacting with the epoxy. So that should get us pretty close. It feels pretty good. There are some edges over here that I'll try to kind of squish some resin into. There we go. Let this sit for a little bit while we get our other one done. So again, first, same as the first, bunch of pumps. Mix the powder now in with the epoxy. I think I used a little bit too much sparkle gold in that. Hopefully that didn't ruin it, but if I like it, I can recreate it. That's good. Put these two bad guys in the vise, like that. And we'll just let this sit for a couple hours. And lastly, we'll grab some parchment paper. A nice big old sheet of it. This is where it gets messy, so that's why gloves are important. Since I didn't have any more clamps, I just threw this heavy piece of steel plating, 1/4 inch thick, on top of it, and then threw a bucket. This has got a bunch of water in it. It's pretty heavy. Should do the trick just fine, as long as it's got some decent compression. And these over here, we'll let these dry as well for a couple of hours and come back to them and see what they look like when they're all hardened. Come on. Here we go. Who's my boy? You're gonna come out and help me today on him. In total, I let this sit for about 6 days. You don't have to, I was just on vacation. 24 hours is more than enough. Good God. The resin just cut me. Good God, that hurt. The stuff does end up being like glass almost. The nice thing about using the wax paper is that it comes off really easily. Then we have this sweet, the red and black pattern micarta. This actually turned out a lot better than I thought it was going to. This can be kind of tricky. Sometimes you get lucky and it'll separate itself from the bag. And you don't have to worry about it. Other times you have to kind of cut the bag off. Oh, perfect. And with this method, since there's gonna be air pockets, you're gonna catch some bubbles. There's a couple ways to avoid this, whether it be hitting it with a blowtorch going in, continuously disturbing it. But since it's such a big piece, I didn't really put too much effort into it. I didn't really care. If you look over here, you can see where we didn't quite get the epoxy all up in this corner over here. This is essentially useless. I mean, it makes a cool shape, but you know, it's not a solid piece. It's nice and strong, it's just can't really make a handle out of that. So, but this will make a couple of good scales here. Plenty of good material to work with, and I like the design and color. Once we start cutting it, you'll see how cool it is. This, on the other hand, didn't dry nearly as clear as I'd like to. Maybe it'll change when I start sanding it and shaping it to whatever handle I put it on. But, you know, not totally unsalvageable. Who knows? I still think this will make some pretty cool scales when we get down to cutting it and shaping it, but until then, we'll see. Let's do the red and black micarta on this knife. This knife is basically tempered, sharp, and ready to go. I've been trying to finish up this knife for a hot minute on YouTube, and I just haven't found time to do so. I've actually been pretty displeased with it just because it's taken me so long to finally get around to doing it. I do have a handle that I was making for this and ended up cracking, but you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna use the red micarta on it. Since this knife is already tempered and ready to go, it just needs to be cleaned up. It's been sitting in the garage for a while, so it's a little rusty, but this knife's already tempered, ready to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this handle on here. I've set that off to the side. While that dries, I'm gonna kind of sculpt and mess around with this a little bit. I'll try to show you guys this. This is the inner side of the red, white, and blue micarta. As you can see, it's got the red, white, and blue for the Freedom Chopper. Here's how the Rhino's handles are turning out. Kind of supposed to look like a mixture of bone or horn. I'm actually very surprised with the way this has turned out. I actually quite like it a lot. I'm in the midst of polishing the actual handles themselves to make them just a little bit shinier. But I like them a lot. It's a completely different look to them, you know. Let's take the clamps off of our knife. And let's go and pattern this.
After about an hour with hand sanding, we got the handle pretty contoured, about the way that I want it. Really like the way it looks. Really like the way the spine's coming. Ignore the muffledness. I have my respirator on. Fits really well in the hand. I'm gonna hit this on the polishing wheel and bring it to a nice polished finish so we can get that really good look of the micarta, and we'll be done.
Anyway, guys, sorry for the long wait in posting knives. I hope you enjoyed this. Took me a long time to get this one done. Hope you like it. Make sure to follow me on Instagram because I don't make a video every time I make a knife. So there's sometimes going to be knives for sale on my store or on Instagram that is not on here. I'll try to keep posting more videos. I just really have been busy, man. But hope you guys enjoyed this. And yeah, thank you.